I'm 10 Weather Impact meteorologist Michael Behrens here for today's 10 Weather Impact show. We've been keeping a close eye on our forecast as we make our way toward the end of the week. And we initially had a 10 TV Weather Impact Alert Day in place, but we've decided to go ahead and roll that back and lift that status for tomorrow. And the reason behind that being, well, we've just seen the threat weaken over the past couple of days from when we initially issued it. Here's the factors we were looking at as for why we changed that status for tomorrow. The timing, one of the biggest factors out there. Rain expected to be between the commutes, so not impacting your morning rush hour, not impacting your evening rush hour. By extension, that rainfall also out of here before we hit 1st and 10, which is good news for those football games. Other things we're watching, coverage and intensity. They've both been decreasing. We're not expecting as widespread of a rainfall or as intense of a rainfall, and the threat for any kind of thunderstorm activity involved with that also decreasing. With that decreased coverage and intensity is coming a diminished severe weather threat. The only concern we're really watching now, mostly for our southern counties, related to some occasionally gusty winds. So we're not really expecting that big severe weather threat that would prompt a weather impact alert day, and for those reasons we've gone ahead and rescinded that status again for tomorrow. What we are still expecting through the day on Friday is some gusty wind activity. Those winds could gust as high as 30 miles per hour, mostly sustained in the 10 to 20 mile per hour range. So you still need to be ready for some windy conditions as we head into the end of the week. Have a jacket ready for those winds out there, and keep in mind if you're driving as well. But overall, impacts expected to be less than when we first issued that alert day. So that's good news for tomorrow. As far as this afternoon, it's also been pretty good news across central Ohio. Beautiful skies out there right now, blue and quiet as can be. The temperatures warming nicely this afternoon too. We're up to 55 here in Columbus, 58 in Circleville, 57 Lancaster, 57 Newark. Temperatures close to that 60-degree mark this afternoon. I think we will get there as we head toward tomorrow. Really looking like a pretty mild day, and really wouldn't be so bad if we didn't have to dodge those rain showers here for the end of the week. The next 12 hours out there, it will be a nice afternoon. We'll stay in the upper 50s, close to 60 until sunset. After that, temperatures falling, but we've got some stabilizing impacts out there as cloud cover increases tonight. It should start to stabilize those temperatures, and we're only really expected to fall into the low 40s, maybe some upper 30s out there. Should be a little bit milder thanks to the cloud cover pushing in as we head through tonight. Let's talk about the winds. This evening, not bad, only about 3 to 8 mile per hour winds across central Ohio now. This will get gustier again as we head through tonight and into tomorrow. Your wind gust forecast out there only about as high as, say, 8 mile per hour through the next several hours into this evening. Once we cross the other side of midnight, starts to get a little bit breezier, and by the morning commute tomorrow, we could see wind gusts as high as 20-25 miles per hour. This will peak about midday when we could see 30 mile per hour wind gusts across central Ohio. Again, coming with some of those showers as they push through. That would be about the biggest concern we have. And then once we get on the other side of that, heading toward Friday night football, wind gusts die back down. Could still see the occasional gust up to around 20, but the peak wind gust of the day will be gone, and that should be good news again for those Friday night games. Let's talk rain chances. We're still holding on to about an 80% chance for rain tomorrow, so we are expecting the rain to come through. Again, just not as intense as initially thought. We should dry back out for Saturday, but then rain comes back as we head into Sunday, and even the risk of mixing with some snow as we head into Monday. Could be some of our first flakes of the year as we head toward early next week. As far as the rest of the day goes, well, our system still quiet for now. Clear skies over Ohio, but we're watching what's out toward the west. That'll head our way as we get into tomorrow, so let's get you ready for it hour by hour. Here's what things look like out there. Heading through the rest of the day today, we'll see increasing clouds, and into early Friday morning will be pretty overcast by the morning commute. But here's the good news. This is 7 a.m. No rain to be found here on the hour-by-hour forecast. Things are still nice and quiet by this point and continues to stay quiet until about 10-11 o'clock. That's when we see rain activity push into central Ohio. Could be occasionally isolated gusty winds, maybe a rumble of thunder, but overall this is not expected to be a major event when it comes to storm activity. This will continue through the midday and into the early afternoon. You can already see by 2-3 o'clock some of our northwestern counties starting to clear out, and we should be wrapping up with the rain here in Columbus. By the time we head toward the evening commute, that rainfall is pretty much past us here in the metro. We'll be wrapping up in our eastern counties by 4, 5, 6, and then we are nice and dry. By the time we head towards 7 o'clock, that's when most of those games will kick off tomorrow night for the next week here of high school football playoffs, and we are looking nice and quiet by the time we head into the evening, with continued quiet weather as we go through Friday. Maybe a little bit of patchy fog out there by early Saturday, but overall should be a nice day to kick off the weekend here with more sunshine as we head into the afternoon. Of course, burn that fog off later in the day as well. Now, you did hear us mention snow when we talked about that forecast a minute ago, and I want to go ahead and get to that in just a moment. Before we do, though, one quick look here at the severe weather potential for tomorrow. This is the area, if we're going to see a gusty storm, where it would form level 1 out of 5. Very low confidence, low threat for storms here. We're not really talking tornadoes, hail, flooding, just not in the cards. We are watching for a little bit of gusty wind as we head toward tomorrow. So here's a look at that snow chance, all right? This is Sunday, early in the day. Got some rain shower activity pushing into the region. Snow stays up to the north. We've seen that snow activity up into Michigan. The same as we head throughout the day. Should be all rainfall Sunday. Temperatures, though, they fall on the other side of this system. That low pressure wraps around some moisture, and as we head into early Monday, we could see some bands of snow here across central Ohio that'll last throughout the day Monday and into Monday afternoon. Too early to think accumulation here. In terms of the intensity of this, not expected to be all that intense, at least not as of right now. And in terms of accumulation, I think we're going to be too warm. Expecting anything to stick to anything except a bridge or a car windshield is going to be very hard to do. But of course, we will keep a close eye on that and keep you ready for this as we head through the weekend and into next week. Your 10 weather impact 7-day forecast. We see a nice rise in temperature between now and the weekend, climbing into the 60s for both Friday and Saturday. Of course, again, we were watching that impact day for Friday, but we've since removed it. Here's another look at those rain chances. They kind of peak late morning, early afternoon, and then they're back down by the time we head toward football on Friday night, which is, again, good news for those games. Temperatures, though, they start to drop as we head into Sunday, down to 48 for the high. That will continue downward into the 30s as we head into Monday. We do have that risk for snow in there. Of course, we'll be watching that day very carefully as we head through the next couple of days here and into the weekend. Temperatures could be as cold as the 20s out there. Monday morning will be in the 20s again Tuesday morning, but then warming back up as we head through next week with temperatures that'll push their way back up into the 50s by next Wednesday. So again, a lot of activity in the forecast, but overall, I would say things are improving at least for tomorrow. And then our next thing we got to watch for is just how much wintry weather can we actually get our way as we head into the start of the week next week. Of course, we'll keep you up to date here at 10 TV. And you saw there that snow chance in the forecast next week, but well, this afternoon, other parts of the country, they're already covered in snow. This is video showing ski resorts in Soda Springs, California, near Lake Tahoe, where you can see a light dusting of snow has already hit the slopes. It's also creating some wet conditions on the road there as that small amount of snow has started to melt. And while we haven't had our first snow yet here in central Ohio, we'll knock on wood that we don't see some next week, even just talking about it can cause anxiety. Combine that with the time change and, of course, talk of winter and more darkness as the sunlight is going down, is heading toward December. It can lead to some mood changes. You've probably heard of it, seasonal affective disorder. This afternoon, we're hearing from experts about how to help. Kyland Hall reports with more.
Nurse practitioner Chantel Marson starts helping some of her patients prepare for the seasonal blues around late October. Marson says being proactive and aware of the facts can help ease the worry that comes when mood and motivation, unprovoked, take a steep dive.
We don't have a lot of motivation. People say they're more fatigued. They don't really enjoy doing the things they normally enjoy doing. So it's a form of depression that typically occurs episodically versus like all throughout the year.
The official term is seasonal affective disorder. Marson says it's no mystery and nothing to blame on yourself. It's simply what happens when we see less of the sun between October and February.
Happens more frequently in women than men typically, but you'll see it across the board, especially in those like more northern states and the further you are from the equator, essentially.
Marson says everyone is affected differently because hormones like serotonin and dopamine are out of whack without the sun to nurture and activate as much as usual. Marson says plenty of rest, exercise, and a healthy diet is a good start, but the most recommended treatment is light therapy.
You're going to sit in front of it for about 30 minutes in the morning. You don't want to directly stare into it, but what this does is it helps mimic those first morning light hours of sun, helps boost those serotonin levels, helps get you going for the day, turns down those sleepy chemicals.
Marson recommends getting a light with a brightness of 10,000 lumens.
And now to some news about the tropics. It's been quiet in the Atlantic, but Typhoon Kalmeji has made landfall over in the Pacific in central Vietnam. That was as of early Thursday. It's one of the strongest typhoons on record to hit Vietnam, equivalent to a Category 3 hurricane with maximum sustained winds around 125 miles per hour. That storm leaving a trail of destructions in the Philippines as well, where unfortunately at least 114 people were killed as that storm rolled through. And of course, this comes after several Caribbean islands are still feeling the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa from this past week, with governments and organizations all around the world working to ramp up aid efforts and supplies. Officials with the United Nations World Food Program warn recovery efforts across the Caribbean can't slow down. Jamaica's Prime Minister says damage estimates are at least $6 billion, with the U.S. State Department pledging $24 million in disaster relief funding across Jamaica, Haiti, Cuba, and in the Bahamas. And from hurricanes to wildfires, more Americans are thinking about how to be ready when disaster strikes. That's a prepper mindset, and it's spreading overseas as well. In Britain, some people who call themselves survivalists are stocking up on food and supplies and sharpening their defense skills amid global uncertainty. Leigh Price, who owns the Bug Out store in Wales, says he knows some people call him a, quote, nut job, but he laughs it off and says he's not crazy, just cautious.
Whether it's a fire, a flood, a terrorist attack, right? Power goes off, whatever it is. How best can you operate in that situation? What things have you got on you can still function, as normal as possible?
Using data from FEMA, researchers found the number of preppers in the U.S. has doubled in the last 8 years, reaching to around 20 million. And from News Here on Earth, it's time to take a look at some headlines from outer space. This is a video of a previous launch of a SpaceX Falcon 9. They're now targeting the launch of 29 more Starlink satellites to low Earth orbit from the Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. That launch is scheduled to take place on November 10th between 5:12 and 9:12 p.m. This will be the third flight for that first stage booster supporting the mission, which has previously launched KF-01 and IMAP missions. Following stage separation, the first stage will land just on the Just Read the Instructions drone ship, interesting name there, which will be stationed in the Atlantic Ocean. The launch will be live streamed on X. And while that launch is in the future, 25 years ago this week, astronauts opened the hatch on the International Space Station for the very first time. It's been in constant use ever since, but all good things come to an end, and the ISS will be retired at the end of the decade. With that, the race to replace it is on. Mark Strassman takes a look at what could be next.
Commander Peggy Whitson, the first one across the APAS hatch.
No American astronaut has logged more time on the International Space Station than Peggy Whitson. 5 visits, 695 days in space.
And now I am excited by what comes next. So this is what we call our active corridor.
We met Whitson at Axiom Space in Houston. She joined the company 4 years ago to help design a new commercial space station.
We are interested in developing a facility that's going to support research, manufacturing, and allow astronauts to get experience there.
Axiom Space Station will start out attached to the ISS, then break free and grow to 5 modules in all, enough to support 8 people. Axiom aims to launch the first module in 2 years.
This is a mock-up of the Earth Observatory.
Axiom Vice President Aaron Tullis told us the station will feature the largest windows in the solar system.
We've learned a lot about what's possible in space, but we're looking to build a platform now that can take advantage of the possible.
Axiom is one of several companies developing commercial space stations. They hope to attract customers such as NASA and space agencies from other countries. But Vast, based in Long Beach, California, could reach orbit first next year. Its space station, called Haven 1, is privately funded and the size of a bus.
This is the primary structure of Haven 1.
Max Hout is Vast's CEO.
It will support 2-week mission initially, and then we can increase that over time.
Is this to scale? Vast hired former NASA astronaut Drew Feustel to advise on Haven 1's design.
Come through the hatch, the little tunnel, then into this corridor.
Are there enough customers to go around?
I absolutely believe there's enough customers. We are at a time in history where we've never seen this much investment, interest, infrastructure being poured into space access.
Vast is counting on that interest to fund a larger space station it's planning called Haven 2.
Here comes Whitson for final hugs as she departs the space station.
For most of Peggy Whitson's time in space, the ISS was the only occupied space station in low Earth orbit. Not anymore. Today, China has its own and threatens U.S. dominance in space. Mark Strassman, CBS News.
Finally today, let's check out some new video into us here at 10 TV, sticking first with the space theme. This is some images that were taken from around the world of the supermoon that rose in our skies last night. A supermoon known as the Beaver Moon glowed above major cities around the world on Wednesday. Beaver moons only occur in November when beavers are the most active, and supermoons when the moon is at its closest point to the Earth in its orbit, making it appear larger than an average full moon. The most intense supermoons appear about 30% brighter and up to 14% larger than a normal full moon. And you can see just how beautiful some of those images were from last night all around the world, from Australia to China to Europe to right here in the U.S., catching a beautiful view of that large moon. Of course, if you got any moon photos last night, feel free to send them to us here at 10 TV. You can find us on social media, or you can email us, even send a photo through the 10 TV app. We'd love to share those here with our audience. And finally, this time last week, of course, we were preparing for Halloween across central Ohio and those festivities. But now that the holiday has passed, what do you do with all those pumpkins? Well, this is one answer. Animals were treated to a Halloween leftover party during the annual, quote, squishing of the squash. This is an event that takes place at the Rosamond Gifford Zoo in Syracuse, New York. On November 1st, Asian elephants, Amur tigers, meerkats, Adding bears, red river hogs, and black and white ruffled lemurs got to stomp and chow down on those pumpkins as part of their enrichment. It's probably a good way to get rid of those pumpkins because, I mean, every year I feel like they just get left out on porches. They just slowly fall in on themselves, and then it just kind of becomes a mess that nobody wants to deal with. Although getting those pumpkins out to a zoo seems like a good way to put them to some use. The only thing that I've ever done with one of my pumpkins, I had a squirrel once outside that kind of got into it before we had the end of the holiday celebration, and he made short work of that. So definitely seeing lots of animals out there like to take those pumpkins for a tasty snack. Speaking of a tasty snack, I hope you got your fill here of all the weather information on 10 TV Plus, but we're never done tracking the latest weather. And coming up later tonight, Chief Meteorologist Jerry Martz, he'll be in to break down the latest timeline on our rain chances for tomorrow. And of course, from there, all eyes turn to that potential for winter weather next week. We'll be watching that carefully. Until then, you can catch more news and weather online. That'll be at 10tv.com. Have a great afternoon.